For those of you who are asking about it, the 36 inches down poster that I created as a total spoof for last week's video is available for purchase. So if you desire to hang that on your wall, you now can. Okay, on with the video. The last episode ended with me pedalling off towards Tyler, Texas to meet Brad Armstrong. Brad has invited me to his lakeside home to meet him and collect a donation for School in a Bag, the charity my ride was supporting. So far, this was nothing out of the ordinary. What was out of the ordinary was the amount that Brad planned to donate. $100,000. I know, I was a little bit shocked too.
I'm riding on a one-man wheel, carcass built analog 36-inch unicycle across the USA. I don't know what the hell I'm gonna get myself into. Yeah.
My name's Ed, and I'm riding a unicycle around the world. Join me on this series as I attempt to cycle 4,000 miles across the United States of America. At this point, I had no idea if Brad was for real. He could have been a mass unicycle murderer for all I knew, but for the last 3 years I'd learned you can usually judge whether or not someone is genuine, and from the brief phone call we had, I was pretty confident my trip wasn't going to end sunk to the bottom of Lake Tyler. So I pedalled onwards, curious to meet the man so extremely generous. And I'm just keen to have a little chat with him and kind of ask him a few questions about that, because I'm still stunned by it. As I was rolling through the Texas countryside, I was stopped by a chap called Jeff. He had discovered me and my ride through my videos and had come out to ask if I could sign his 36-inch unicycle.
And then I'm going to put like a clear poly on top of it and preserve it.
Yeah,
I know that sounds weird.
No, I'll do it, no worries.
It'd be like inspirational.
Yeah, do you want me to do it now?
Sure. Thank you so much.
No worries. Just before Jeff headed home with his now defaced 36er, another chap rolled up in his truck. It was the infamous Brad Armstrong. It was great to finally put a face to the name. Riding to Lake Tyler would have been a bit of a detour, so in the interest of saving energy, I decided to drive back with Brad now. I put a pin in my map. The Shamrock gas station, that's where I'll come back to and carry on the trip, just so the route is connected. Loaded my unicycle into his truck, and planned to return in a couple of days to continue my ride. But for now, we were on our way to Tyler, Texas. 1 year on the road though, yeah. I mean, I think I get frustrated with the speeds on that thing. What was the biggest stage?
Most people wouldn't ride a 36 inch, they'd be frustrated with that.
It was during this short drive that I learned something pretty remarkable about Brad. About 40 years ago, when he was 22, Brad spent a year riding a unicycle across the States. Who on earth would think that was a good idea? In all seriousness, I found his trip pretty damn impressive. Not just because it's a bloody long way to unicycle, but because it was done in a time when unicycles really weren't designed to cross countries. But Brad did it, and on his little 24-inch unicycle at that. This was his route. I was of course fascinated to learn more about his experience riding across the States.
I started in Okefenokee Swamp, just north of Jacksonville, Florida, in Georgia. Dunked my tennis shoe in. That morning when I woke up, there was a crab in my shoe.
Oh, yeah.
A tiny crab, yeah. When I first got started, the saddle sores, you know, and kind of wondering how much have I bitten off. I started telling people when I was going that I was going for the West Coast, the East Coast, and everybody said, well, that's a pretty big effort. I had $75. I spent $50 on the unicycle the day before I left, and $25 and a poem I recited. I had it printed up on these 3x5 cards. I'd recite it and give it to them. And, you know, maybe they'd feel like they'd gotten something. They'd give me, $1 or a banana or whatever, and it was enough. I finished in San Diego, California, in Imperial Beach, where I had a good swim.
And was there a bit of a celebration? Did you have a bit of an event when you finished?
Well, it was a relief. It was a wonderful sense of achievement that I had done that. But generally speaking, people were very kind to me, and it was a wonderful adventure.
Planted on a small peninsula that stretched out into Lake Tyler, Brad's home was in a stunning location. If you're one of the people that have decided to support me on Patreon, then thank you very, very much. I really hope you're enjoying watching these episodes a week early. And of course, my biggest thanks goes to those of you that are supporting me on the 3rd tier, and they are Adam Fink, Adam Stevens, Alan Porter, Alex Brito, Alex Lee, Annabelle Miley, Anson Liang, Axel Fontaine, IP, Cary Cleland, Damon Walker, Dakota Morehouse, Daniel Silas, Daniel Thorpe, David Jolliffe, Derek Donovan, Devin Barry, Elijah Green, Elijah Legender, Gaya Denavaya, Jeff and Kelly Elder, James Little, Jessison, Justin Lewis, Yuri Ninonin, Kelly Jackson, Kentaro Sakino, the Madston Brothers, Malvin Zhen, Mario Yegas, Mark Paris, Mike Foxwell, Rocky Top, Sam Richardson, Sophie Vun, Stephen Jones, Sumi Lamours, Neil Brooks, Thin Seller, Tommy Nurmajavi, Travis Kay, Tyson and Bethany Hodge, and Warren Snyder. Thank you very, very much for supporting what I do. And now on with the video. Planted on a small peninsula that stretched out into Lake Tyler, Brad's home was in a stunning location. Our first port of call after arriving was the workshop. Now, this isn't the unicycle he used for his trip, but it is pretty much identical. The real one lives at the Smithsonian Museum in DC. My own cross-country unicycle currently had a slow puncture, so I thought I'd make the most of Brad's air compressor and switch out the inner tube. Super. The next morning, I woke up early to go for a dip. After the swim, I was very keen to jump on a Skype call with Luke and the team from School in a Bag so that they could thank Brad for the $100,000 donation he planned to make. Little did we know at the start of this call just how outrageous this conversation would become. It'll be him and Zoe, I think. Hey, how's it going?
Hi, Ed.
I'm just going to clean the screen a little bit. It's a little bit...
Wow. It does look beautiful where you are.
It's a very beautiful place.
So this is Brad.
Hi.
Brad. Hi, Brad. How are you?
Doing good, thank you. How are you?
Wow. And Ed, how are you? You're making good progress in America?
Yeah, we're getting there. Well, I need to. I've got maybe 1,700 miles left and about 2 months. And that's it. Yeah. And then maybe 500 in the UK, and then I'll see you.
He is scorching along. I mean, in terms of unicycle times, he is like setting speed records. You know,
hardly.
He's going.
Well, you've got no excuses for weather.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's gorgeous. It's almost too hot now. But yeah, what's interesting about Brad is that, what was it, 30 years ago? He cycled across the US on a 24-inch unicycle. Took him a year.
Oh, good heavens. So is
actually,
Brad, is that the connection, really?
Oh, sorry, 41 years ago.
Yeah. Brad, is that the connection? Is that how you found Ed?
Yeah, I don't remember how I found his first video, but yeah, I was once I saw it, man, I was just like totally, wow.
Yeah.
So because it certainly touched home to me, having done a coast-to-coast unicycle journey 40 years ago. So
good.
And his his big adventure is it's gigantic. I mean, to go all the way around the world, and that's so impressive, right?
Indeed.
So you have this wonderful School in a Bag charity, is that right?
That's right. Yeah. So we effectively fundraise.
Yeah.
And then we use our money to send rucksacks of school equipment out to very poor, orphan, disadvantaged children around the world.
Well, that's wonderful. And thank you for your service to humanity. I would not know about your charity except for Ed. And so he's probably told you that I wrote him a sizable check. And
well, he did. And you might not have seen, but we did a big dance around the office. And we had a group hug because, we're still really pleased when we get checks for £20, $30 in the post. We're just blown away by it. I mean, gosh, we don't really know what to say other than it's just absolutely incredible, and we're extremely grateful. Thank you. We've currently distributed, I don't know if you can see just behind Hannah's head, there's a little totals board, and it says that we've distributed 83,554 school bags to children in 39 different countries. So that's our total. But we're very keen. We've set ourselves a goal of trying to reach the 100,000 school bag milestone by the end of 2018. Now, it's doable, but we're going to have to work quite hard and get some support to do it. But, if we're lucky and we can get the message out there and get people on board, we might just make it.
Right. So if you wanted to come up with a US dollar amount that would get you to your 100,000 bags, you never know what might come.
Good heavens. The line went a bit muffly then.
You better calculate.
I'm not sure we really heard that probably. Is there any chance you could repeat that, Brad?
Well, it's not a promise, but calculate out, not for 100,000, but 100,000 I want, of course. And we got to get across the goal line.
Yes.
So.
Gosh. Okay.
Calculate
that
out.
We might need to punch some numbers a moment. Brad, if you'll allow us about 5 minutes when we've finished the conversation.
We got all day.
Whilst you've been talking, we've had some people in the background, some adjudicators in the background, doing some statistics, and we'll write all this down properly. But in order to get us to 100,000 bags, in terms of US dollars, we're really looking at about $355,154.
Okay.
355,154. And as I say, we'll document that down and write it properly.
Yep.
And put it together so you've got it on paper. But that's the amount. That's the
okay.
amount.
Well, we can do that. So I know this thing has been set up low, so to show off my big belly. So I want to show you where we're at. We're behind. I'm going to lift this up, and we're out on the. Whoops.
Oh wow! That's wow. Now where, Brad? Is this your garden? So Brad, wonderful to meet you, and thanks again. And Ed, good luck with the rest of your trip across the states, and do keep in touch as and when you can.
All right, I can stay on the line if you want to discuss anything more. I'll let you go, Brad.
All right.
Yeah.
Later.
All right.
Yeah.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye now.
Thanks, Brad. Bye-bye. Ed, what just happened?
Yeah, you tell me. What just happened was that Brad took his already ludicrous $100,000 donation and upped it to $355,000. That's over £250,000, and I think it almost gave Luke a heart attack. Now, what was even crazier was that by the time Brad actually sat down to write the cheque, he decided that just to ensure that School in a Bag reached their goal, he'd up it again to $370,000. Just because, why not? I'd never experienced this level of generosity, and I was curious to learn just how on earth Brad found himself in a position to be such a wealthy philanthropist. I came here thinking that you were going to be donating $100,000, and Brad's just upped it to $370,000, which is equivalent to sending 13,000 school bags to, 13,000 children. Wow, man, that's just incredible. And if it isn't too personal, would you mind just talking a little bit about how you made your money and how you're able to afford to be so generous?
I started becoming officially saying that I was an inventor, spending my full time inventing things, and I invented I have 34 issued U.S. patents, and I've licensed them to some of the biggest consumer electronic companies that everyone knows the names of, but I'm not going to say it. And it was a long time to get to that first paycheck, but that was, kind of got me on my feet. And then I put some of that into cryptocurrencies recently, which has been a huge boom. And so now I'm able to donate to charities, and I love it.
Could you tell me one of your patents, one of the inventions that you patented?
Yeah, well, a lot of them are on game controllers. So, if you use the big video game, manufacturers, and you're using some of my inventions.
The next morning, it was time for me to leave Lake Tyler and resume pedalling towards New York. It was truly a fascinating last couple of days, and I was honoured that Brad had decided to reach out and invite me into his world. There she is.
Alright, we're here.
Back at the Shamrock gas station, as I prepared to set off, I felt proud that my unicycle ride had connected Brad with the important work that School in a Bag do. 13,000 kids will now have access to learning resources that they didn't have access to before, and that's a big deal. Thank you once again, Brad.
Yeah, going towards you, watch out. There we are. Alright, see you, Brad.
Bye, Ed. There goes Ed Pratt, unicycling around the world.
If you're feeling impatient and can't wait for next week's video, you're in luck, because the next episode is available right now on my Patreon. And if you're feeling really impatient, you can head over to Vimeo and watch the entire Ed Unicycles the USA series from start to finish over there. Your support is greatly appreciated.
Well, this old thing ain't built for speed, but I love my trusty dusty steed. It'll get me around the world soon, then I'll try a full moon. I know my route is roundabout, but I sure as hell don't have a doubt it'll get me where I'm going. As long as the wind is blowing, I'm well aware of dangers out there, and it's not that I don't care, but you